Okay, let's get started. My name is Superintendent Scott Rogers, and it's my pleasure to just welcome you tonight. I wanted to talk to you about a couple things. We're off to a good school year, a start of a good school year, and gosh, we're growing. As you know, we've been told we're the 7th fastest growing county, and we're trying to plan ahead, and we're going to need more school buildings sooner than later, and so you'll hear some things come out in the next couple of months about a bond campaign for probably next year. We're being very sensitive to the taxation impact issue. We're trying to plan that when our schools roll off, when our other bonds roll off, so that we'll have a minimal tax impact. But we're at the high school level, we're pretty full, and we've got growing and growing and growing happening as you can when you look around and drive around. So we do have if some of you don't know, with the last bond, we went ahead and purchased property. We have property behind Home Depot for a high school in Tooele, and we have property kind of kitty corner from where Stansbury is on Bates Canyon, right next to where if you guys know where Lori Wachowski lives, right there on Bates Canyon, kind of diagonal from Stansbury High School. And then we have property for the third need is an elementary in Grantsville. We're getting pretty tight on where's Grantsville Elementary and okay, so Jeff and Angie will attest. We're getting pretty tight there. We're almost at 800 students at Grantsville Elementary, and we're at like 760 or 770 with Willow. So on our construction program, I just want to report to you that we're more than half the way done with the addition at Grantsville High School on the weight room, and then we've got the Tooele. We're ready to pour the slab for the additional 10 classrooms for Tooele Junior High. We really want to keep, the board does, our neighborhood, feeder school concept going. So obviously when we get a new high school in here, then Clark Johnson is going to feed to that school, and then the junior high in Stansbury will feed to Stansbury High School. So we're trying to manage that. School districts that have incredible growth, we can't charge impact fees. Developers and realtors don't like that, and the legislature doesn't allow that. So it's a real concern. I mean, we want to try to keep tax burden low, but we put that in the bond, the last bond to buy the land. My most frequent question from patrons is, when are the schools going to be built? And people, we want you to understand that we don't have the funding. That would come from a local voted bond election. And so we're planning, and we're in the research phase and study phase, and the board has a work session, and we'll get more information out on that to you. So you'll see that as parents and community councils, and hopefully we'll do good planning. But we're trying to plan for the future, right? I mean, growth happens before we receive the fundings for that. We don't get funding from the state for buildings. Buildings are the responsibility of the local communities. So trying to wait to maybe get businesses in so that all of that doesn't hit residential property taxes, but it's a real challenge, and you can ask folks in Nebo and in St. George and in Alpine where they have incredible growth rates. I mean, we're at now 17,000 students. When I got here, we were at 13,200. So in 5 years, we've grown quite a few students, and some of those are online. So that's one topic I just wanted to tell you about. We're doing our best. We're going to plan and get that information out to you. We know how important parents are. The second topic I was going to talk to you about is our Parents as Partners workshop series. So last year we started this. We did, I think, 6 Parents as Partners workshop series. We covered tough topics that that kids are faced with today, like sexting, opiate addiction. We had Jay Mack come and talk about digital citizenship and safety online, which we're going to repeat, and Dolene's going to talk to you about that this year. We did one Parents as Partners. We showed the movie Resilience, talking about how to teach kids, resilience when they've been suffered from emotional trauma or abuse. The prevalence rate of what they call ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, and mental health issues in our district. I mean, the rough estimate is 20% of our kids are dealing with some kind of a mental health, emotional, social issue. So 20% of 16,000 is 3,200 kids, right? And so we've got some We're going to continue to work on bullying, on suicide prevention, bullying prevention, school safety, school culture, school climate. Here on the 8th of October, our teachers are going to, instead of doing Techtoberfest and talking about how to use technology in the classroom, we're going to take a pause and we're going to talk about classroom management, positive behaviors, culture, climate. It's that old Maslow's hierarchy of needs that you got to feel basic biological needs and then psychological needs for safety and security, and before you work on academic hierarchy or that kind of a thing. So stay tuned for more information on that. We're really hitting culture. We want kids to feel safe. We've come a long way from 5 years ago when we had 7 suicides, and we've really implemented quite a lot with some good community partners like Communities That Care and Valley Behavioral Health. We have some more mental health counselors, and we have a grant so that we can get kids into counseling if their parents aren't able to do that. We still lack kind of a long list of resources of providers in the Tooele Valley for mental health providers, but it's something that we continue to try to address and work on. The next Parents as Partners workshop series, Doe is going to talk about one when she gets up about internet safety, which is a community council item or area. The one I want to just let you know about is on October 25th at Tooele High School. We're going to screen the movie, and it's just out, and it's really quite good. It's called Angst, and it's about stress, anxiety, depression, emotional health and resilience for teenagers and what parents can do. So it's really designed to help parents have those discussions and know what resources are in the community. It's a movie called Angst. Doe will talk to you about the other one, but we would love to have you as community council members. We appreciate you so much for what you do with our 90-day plans, helping us with those, with the community council trust land plans, and assisting and supporting and giving voice to principals and to school teams. I think it looks good next year for appropriation. I mean, the money coming to community councils is not at risk. I think they've been trying to increase that every year. So I think you'll see that. I think you still got some good support. Don't know what's going to happen with the whole our schools now vote on the gasoline tax. I mean, that's going to go to Utah voters as a question on the November ballot, but and some of us will get it in October in the next couple weeks on mail-in ballots. So I don't know what will happen with that, but if that does happen, the board will set a framework, and the school principal with input from community council and staff, et cetera, and parents and students will come up with a plan similar to the trust lands plan, and it'll be it's called the Student Success Act. No, the Student Success Fund, something like that, where Teacher and Student Success Fund, where that money will go into. It can be used for programs, it can be used for staffing, like 25% of it can be used for salary, et cetera. So we did a good job of bumping our salaries up with a voted levy. Thank you for those that supported that. And as promised, all that money went into employee compensation so that we could retain teachers. We were losing quite a few teachers to Salt Lake. And so we got our starting salaries up to 42. We're above where they're at Granite by a few $100s. They're at 41.8. So we do have to be competitive in today's market. So those are some of the things we're working on. The board has done a good job of setting very focused goals: excellence in student achievement, excellence in communications, and then climate and security and safety, and then transparency in business functions, and then HR. So those are the 5 goals that we have, and we have some different steps outlined underneath those. You can see them over here if you're interested in that, or they're on our website. But that's what we're working on. We want to give every kid equity and opportunity to be successful in whatever school they're at. We want them to feel loved and supported, and we want to nurture that and keep them safe. So we're working on those safety issues. If you haven't been to Rose Springs, we would like to do the same kind of doors at all of our schools, but it's going to take us a few years to scale that up, and some planning to try to keep our doors physically safe. That's not the only answer or the only thing we're doing. We're doing more cameras. We're doing a safety committee where we've got student representatives. Our students are doing a great job with the Safe Utah app, and they're actually doing the see something, say something, and that is the most powerful thing to prevent those kind of school tragedies is when kids say, hey, my friend, I care about them, but they're talking, crazy, or they're talking about this, and they let us know on the Safe UT app, and then we respond and try to hook resources up with those kids who are struggling. So there's a lot going on at the state level and in the district level. We just appreciate this community council support. We appreciate you as parents. We're going to continue. Our commitment is to do what's right for kids and let you know what we're doing and what's happening and have good opportunity to give you voice. So one other plug for PTA. If you haven't joined your local PTA, join your PTA. That gives you another opportunity beyond community council to have voice, and we would love you at the PTA. So with that, I'll turn the time over to Joanne Kuhn. Thank you for coming tonight.
It wasn't that good.
Well, thank you for coming. We are holding this community council training because it is required by law that we do this once a year. So we hold it every year, but if you have people in your buildings that can't attend this, we are recording it so that you will have that available. The other options are throughout the state, on the state website. They give you other trainings that you can go to throughout the state. And some of those are really, really good because they're run and they have little breakout sessions. So if you've never been to them, they really are fabulous to go to. And you can go to that even if you attend this one. So there's lots of opportunities for you to learn more about community councils. The item that I'm going to talk to you about today comes a little bit from feedback from our principals. And some of our principals ask for Community Council 101 or Community Council for Dummies was one request. So Jackie Gallegos, and she'll be here in a little bit, but she also helps us a lot with the state website and works with our state people. And so she and I kind of looked at putting together a section that gives you a timeline and just the basics, and then all of the ways that you can find more information about that on the state website. So we're not going to read this whole thing, I promise you. We're just going to cover a couple of little things that I know were important that we have to cover because we had an audit last year. So we were audited, and there are a few things that we need to correct, and we're going to make sure that we cover those throughout the training tonight, some of the things that we need to do better at. So if you look at the book, I mean, we just have our Board of Education that are in charge of approving our plans. We talk a little bit on the second page about the annual training requirements, which we're doing tonight, but remember there are other options to get that training. And everything that the community councils and the trust lands plans do are based on these laws and rules. And we could have printed them off, but honestly, the packet would have been a lot larger than this. So here are the laws and the rules. On the state website, there are links. So you don't even have to have a login. You can go right to schoollandtrust.org, and you will find a link to all of these laws and rules that you can look at as a council member, as a principal. One of the things that we really have been asked about from especially our chairs, because our chairs have to be parent members, so the chair of your council has to be a parent, is how do I know what to talk about in these meetings? And you really do work very, very closely with your principal on setting up those agendas. But if you go about halfway through the packet, and I should have numbered the pages, but you know when you send it electronically, it doesn't always match. So if you look, there's a suggested timeline for community councils. And we're hoping that this really helps so that you get the information that you need to cover during the year. Most councils in our district meet every other month throughout the year. And we usually have a council meeting really close to the end of September, and that's why we have to have those elections done quickly once school starts. So in August, first part of September, your elections happen so that you can get that very first trust lands meeting in the end of September, the first part of October, because there's an October 20th deadline that has to be posted on the state website. So if you look in August, the first thing that you need to do is hold the elections. On the website, they have a great resource called Community Council Election Checklist. And so it gives you all of those details about how those elections need to be run. We worked with principals ahead of time so that they had that information. But as a chair and for next year, you might want to look at those. Your first meeting in September, and a lot of you have already done that. I've been able to attend a couple of them. You hold that meeting, adopt your rules of procedures, your rules of order, and you can use really simplified version. It's on the state website that you can adopt, but that's just part of what you're supposed to do. And you're supposed to post those on your website. So whatever those rules are. This year, we had an interesting thing come up at Willow, and we learned something new that we've never had to deal with before. If there's a tie, you literally bring those two people in and flip a coin. I was like, well, that's really simple because I'm reading through there trying to figure out some complicated way to solve this problem. And Angie just calls and they said, no, I just flip a coin. So it's like, now we know. I was like, Angie can help us with that. So before October 20th, and this is why you held that first meeting, you have to post on the website and in the school office, in case they don't have internet access, a proposed schedule of the meeting dates for the years, the names of the council members with a phone or email contact. And it's really, really important that we get the correct email information because everything that the state sends out to parent members goes to that email address. And at the end of the year, for approval of your plan, it goes to that email address. So if it changes during the year, whoever is doing your website, you need to make sure that you change those email addresses. So that's one thing that they told us at the audit that's really important that we do that. You also, by October 20th, have to do a summary of the implementation of the school land trust, including how many goals were completed and how the money was spent. So for the last one. And the principal on the website has to do a membership report with those email addresses. They have to sign an assurance that they constituted, that the elections were done properly. And if you don't have those members filled through the election, then parents appoint another parent member, and teachers we usually don't have a problem with because we just assign them. Okay, it's a vote, but it's a quick vote. So those are all coming up for those deadlines. So that's one of the things that's really important. Your second meeting in November or December, one of the things that the audit said is we need to review at each of those meetings how the spending is going throughout the year. So as a council chair, as a principal, make sure that's part of your agenda every single month to review the spending and what is happening so that we can track those expenses and make sure that there are not large carryovers. The state expects us to spend the money that we're given each year because it's for the kids that are attending school. And they tell you if you don't spend it, it looks like you don't need the money. So really important to track that. So that's why that's on each of those meetings. In November, December is when you start planning for next year's plan. So we should have our data back from schools, and you should be looking at the data and do a data review because all of the plans have to be based on an academic need. So you look at the data and figure out where you can improve the school by using that trust lands money. So that's really important for that December meeting. January, that third meeting, again, review the progress and the spending. Do that every single month. And you start building those trust lands plans for the next year based on the data. You have to set some goals, prepare an action plan. So you start working on that plan that 3rd and 4th meeting. So in January, February, the beginning of March. And you should have that done by March, because there is a March deadline that we have to get it on the website, because it has to go for board approval before we submit it to the state, and the state has to approve it by May. So we need it by March. We get it on the board, they approve it, or they can send it back depending on if it meets the parameters, and then it goes to the state for approval at the end of that. And they have to approve it by May in order for us to get the money again in July for the next year. So those deadlines, meeting those deadlines are important. Then that April or May last meeting, there are some things you can do. If you haven't already done your digital citizenship training, which Dolene's going to talk about, that's a good month to do that. School walking plans come up in the spring. It used to be required that you do that. Now it's suggested that you really do review those walking plans with your community council. So there are some things that you can do during that month. And we're really hoping that kind of the short version with links helps you as a council to plan what you're doing through the year. And feedback is wanted, you know, if you find there are other things that you'd like to see. One of the things that we're going to do is we've given you a paper copy, but we're going to send this out electronically to all of the schools so that you can have this available on your school website. And it really helps your council members know where to go, and then it will help them to know where to look on the state website. The state website is great. They really put good information, but sometimes it's really hard to track down exactly what you're looking for without spending a large amount of time to find it. So if there are other questions that come up during the year, talk to your principals. We can add to this. We can find where those links are and help you out. One of the other things that's really important that they talk to us about at the audit and why we're doing the training is the very last page in this handout. And that is what needs to be on school websites. And so there are all the deadlines of when they have to be. There are the laws and the rules that are attached, so you know, again, you can refer to those, why they have to be there. It talks about your meeting agendas, the drafts of the previous minutes that are supposed to be on your website each time. And there are some things that have to be always on the website. It's right in the middle. So always means if I went and looked at the website right now on your schools, they should be there. And we do those checks. Jackie checks them, I check them. So we look that they're there. If you want to know a really great website to look at, and even from the auditors, they said this is the standard, it's Stansbury High School website. Yep. Yeah. They said it is perfect. They can find everything there. It was really easy. So that's a great place. And Andy's laughing because Galen loves it. She loves it. She is. She's very proud of herself. It's like she worked hard. So make sure, go ahead as a parent, go onto the website, and if you can't find these things quickly, talk to your principal because they need to be there. And we're going to be doing those checks again to make sure they're there. All right, so the other thing that I'm going to do is we have a very short 5-minute video. It is actually made by Granite School District, but it's on YouTube, so you can use this. And it's actually 5 minutes and 21 seconds. But it talks about what you have to do to create that plan, what's needed in the plan. There's also a short paper version in here, but you will all have access to this. You can just go to YouTube, look this video up, and it'd be a great one to just borrow and show in your council meeting. So Jim's going to show that.
One of the most critical responsibilities of a school community council is to evaluate data and create a school student achievement plan. Every public school in the state receives funds from the School and Institutional Trust Lands Administration. These funds come from annual dividends on millions of acres of land held in trust throughout Utah. Determining how to use these funds at a school is the job of a school community council by way of the school student achievement plan. As stipulated in the name of the plan itself, the goal of a school student achievement plan is to boost student success. So, the question is, how does a council determine the best plan for their school? The first step is evaluation. Council members must evaluate results for state tests and other assessment data to determine the most critical academic needs of students. From there, the council selects one or more subject areas to focus the plan on. This could be reading, mathematics, writing, technology, science, fine arts, social studies, health, or world languages. Using assessment data and other information, the council sets goals for school improvement that are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-based. Once goals are established, the council develops a specific action plan to address needs and meet objectives. They review the school's current school student achievement plan and determine if adjustments need to be made or a new plan prepared. If a new plan or revision needs to be prepared, they begin brainstorming many new options that will directly impact student achievement. This includes reviewing district-approved research-based programs, practices, software, materials, equipment, and strategies. Inviting all members of the council to describe how the group they represent can provide support to boost student achievement, and identifying barriers that may stand in the way. Next, the council determines how the plan will be funded. Members consider the estimated allocation and possible carryover funds and develop a budget. The council may also consider matching money to help implement the plan. School Land Trust Program money can be used as matching money for a grant that supports the goal. In all cases, funds are only to be used to directly impact instruction and enhance academic excellence. These expenditures may include workbooks, textbooks, professional development for educators, computer hardware or software, media center supplies, supplement funding for aides or specialists, study skills classes, academic field trips, credit recovery classes, classroom equipment and materials, or other tools for academic improvement. Programs that are not eligible to receive school land trust funds include plans to improve school climate, provide additional security, address behavioral issues, anti-bullying measures, auditorium audio systems, or other non-academic school needs. Along with detailed directives to carry out and fund the plan, the council must also identify data-driven tools to measure student improvement. This is done by establishing a baseline from current assessment data and defining the achievement goal and the timeline to reach it. Plans must include a description of how progress will be tracked, and regular reports should be provided to council members. Once the plan is fully developed, it must be adopted by the council through a motion. The motion is voted upon, and formal minutes record a roll call of council members in favor or opposed and who was absent. Completed plans are submitted online at www.schoollandtrust.org. From here, the plan is reviewed and revised by the School Accountability Director and the Director of Resource Development, who clear it for review by the Granite School District Board of Education. The board considers the plan and approves it or returns it for revision. It's important for a council to execute the plan with enthusiasm. Progress should be reported throughout the year in school newsletters, websites, social media, or even the marquee. For assistance, the Communications Department can help publicize success stories to a broader audience. A council must also make concerted efforts to inform policymakers and other elected officials about school success. Continued funding through the School Land Trust Program is dependent on elected policymakers being informed and supportive of how the money is used. Formal letters to these individuals should be sent every year. Since the process is a little complex, the best way to think about it is that a school community council is working on 3 school student achievement plans throughout a school year. First, the council is publicizing success stories from evaluations of the plan that was implemented in the previous school year. Next, the council is working to implement the school student achievement plan that was drafted and approved last year. And finally, the council is using current data to develop a new plan that will be implemented the following year. Specific due dates for plans change every year, but councils can expect to publicize success stories from last year's plan in November after data is gathered. New plans are submitted in March.
One of the great things that the state website is going to have this year, and they've already sent one new video out to principals, they are going to send out periodic videos throughout the year that are going to be a lot like this so that you can use them throughout the year to update your council. And hopefully that helps. We've got some time for questions and answers at the end. And right now, we're going to turn it over to Mark Ernst, who is the Grantsville director.
Thank you. So my part, I have two sheets that you guys should have. I have a long version, a short version. So this is going to be on chair responsibility. So the long version is like 10-point font. It's 2 pages. So we're only going to read one thing off of that. And then I have the one that has the clipboard on it. And there's a reason for the clipboard. I'll tell you about that in a second. So on the 10-point font one, a checklist for school community council officers. If you go down to number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the first level, so it starts with provide opportunities. That one I want to read word for word. So the school community council chair provides opportunities for increased involvement of parents and school employees by encouraging issues of concern to be heard and considered by the council, to include non-elected parents and staff on task force and subcommittees as needed, and provide input to administration and the local school board of needs and issues of the school and the school community. The reason why I like that one and wanted to point that out is the community council is made up of a small number of people. However, they represent a much larger body of parents and even people who don't have students at the school. And so a specific duty of the community council chair is to try to have the voice of all those other people who aren't on community council heard. They can come and they can talk to community council, they can come and listen to what's going on, or they can present themselves. This is what we're hearing in the community. So that's a direct duty of the chair. Now, the one with the clipboard. This is the really simple version of the 10-point font paper. So I like this because it's just nice and easy. It breaks down into what are there, 8 or 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8 different duties or responsibilities of the chair. This is taken from a PowerPoint that is on the School Land Trust website, and the directions to how to view that PowerPoint is there at the bottom of this. You'll know you're at the right spot when you see that clipboard, because that clipboard is all over that PowerPoint presentation. But if you just follow the directions there, it'll take you to that link. I would say if you are the chair of a community council, go home tonight or tomorrow sometime and review that PowerPoint. Honestly, it's only going to take you probably 10 or 15 minutes, but it's going to give you a lot of little good ideas on how to fulfill those responsibilities. The last thing I will say is this. As a community council chair, lean heavy on your principal, but don't let them do it all. It's really easy for that because the principal knows, and they kind of know what needs to be done. They know what needs to be on the website. And often in community councils, the principal does most of that work. I had an opportunity to have a community council chair for, 3 or 4 years, who was just wonderful. They ran the meeting for me. They sent email reminders out, and it was such a load off of me as a principal to know that community council stuff was being taken care of by the chair. I still did a lot with agendas, and we talked back and forth, and a lot of email back and forth about what are we forgetting, what needs to be on the agenda. But it sure was nice for me when I was a principal to know that my community council chair was working behind the scenes to make sure their reminders were going out, or even just to remind me sometimes, hey, we have this coming up for community council. Have we done this? And so that was a great help for me as a principal. So that's all I have for chairs. My number one thing would be review the documents and work hand in hand with your principal. And I think Mr. Erdley, the Tooele area director, is going to talk now.
So I have the opportunity of talking about the most exciting part of community council, and that's taking minutes. The reason that we wanted to present this is because last year when we were audited by the state, they talked to us about some of our minutes. And in a few of the cases, they were lacking some things. And so we want to make sure that this training today is clear so that whoever is taking those minutes knows exactly what should be on there. First question is, who should be taking the minutes? And honestly, it could be anyone on the council. It could be the president. I've seen sometimes where the president likes to take the notes because they want to be completely involved in writing everything down. Sometimes I've seen it's the principal who writes down the notes, and sometimes it's another member of the council. But whoever it is, they need to be trained in the proper way of doing it. Now, this is a slide presentation directly from the School Land Trust website that we're going to go through. I'm going to go through it fairly quick and just hit some of the highlights. So first, click, since mine's not working. Neither is his. We're going to talk just a bit about who, what, when, where, and how. So first, some of the things that we need to make sure are on there, that the names of the individuals who are there at the meeting are on on those minutes. You need to make sure that specifically the school, the location, the time, all of that stuff is on there. The main reason is because this is going to be posted on the website. So someone who wasn't at the meeting is going to be able to know exactly what happened, where it happened, and so they'll be able to see all that information. The how is going to be where you're going to spend most of your time. The summary of the discussion of agenda items. That was one area where we got dinged a little bit because sometimes our summaries were a little low. They were, one sentence. We talked about funding, period. Okay, yeah, we get it. That's what you're talking about is funding. But you need to talk about specifics. What part of the funding, what were you talking about? What specific programs? Those types of things. If you have anyone who does show up to your council and is asked to speak to the council, there needs to be a summary of what they're speaking about. Any motions that take place need to be in the minutes. And who gave the motion, as well as when it comes to any type of voting, that needs to be on there. And one thing that we learned is that it needs to be a roll call, meaning that you can't just say it was unanimous, everyone voted, but you need to write down every council member and how they voted, yay or nay. So that's something that's a little bit new and is going to be a little bit more detailed in our meetings that we need to have. And then the last thing there on the how is the information for the record. So if there are things that the council is talking about and there is other information, so there's other papers that are presented, maybe it's data, maybe it's there was something in regards to funding, and someone said, well, let me do some research on it, and they go out and maybe they look at bids or something like that. That information that is then presented needs to be collected and added to the minutes and put on the website. So often our websites, our minutes are just that, minutes, but they don't have all of the extra added papers that we use in these councils, and those need to be scanned, put on the website too. Again, it's public information, and anyone who has some questions about that data or what it is that the council talked about or looked at, they can go to that website and see. All right, click. Jim, you're amazing. Okay, so this is pretty easy. You need to make sure that you have on there who exactly was at the meeting, including those that were not council members. You can put them there that they were attending the meeting. Click. I'm going to have Jim go through these two. You're going to see these next two slides go real quick, and you're going to say they're exactly the same, but there's one word difference. So first I want you to look at this one. It says agenda. So this has to be posted before the meeting saying what you're going to talk about. Click. Notice this one says minutes, but it's exactly the same. They really should match. So you want to make sure when it comes to your minutes and your planning for your meeting that whatever is on the agenda, that you get that to whoever's preparing the agenda early so they can put it on the agenda. So that way the minutes and the things that you talk about are already on that agenda. Does that make sense? That doesn't mean that if something new comes up, you can't add it. Just make sure that there's a section in there that you have that was other information talked about that wasn't on the agenda. It still needs to be put in the minutes. All right, click. Who, again, we talked about this. Just make sure that you, by name, talk about who was there at the meeting. Click. When, where, that pretty self-explanatory. Click. And then the how, again, is just making sure that you're very detailed. And these are some of the examples. You'll have it on your paper. Details more specific about the how, exactly what you talked about. Being good at summarizing. Go ahead and click again. Again, if there were any motions, first off, you see that this is from 2013. This is the state's website. And you'll also notice the very bottom it says voting was unanimous. Oh. We got nailed for that. So they need to update theirs a little bit. But you can see it says the motion to approve was made by John Adams and then seconded by. So again, those motions you need to put in the minutes exactly who said what and then the roll call voting. Go ahead. Again, a summary of anything that you have on your agenda. Doesn't have to be long, but it does need to talk about specific parts of what happened. If there was anything specific that other people talked about, just talk about who spoke and what they spoke about. Any assignments, you can go to the next one where it says these aren't musts, but if you do have assignments that are given, those are always great to put in your minutes because at the start of the next meeting, you're going to start by reading your minutes and hopefully that person remembered to do it. If not, it's going to be a quick jog to their memory. And then it is a good thing to put the date, time, and place of the next meeting on your minutes because, again, you may have people from the community who are on the website and wanting to know when the next community council. Now, that'll already be posted, but sometimes they might want to see it in the meetings too so that they can be at the next meeting in case they have something that they want to say. And so that is minutes. And so if you have any questions, you can do it at the end with a question and answer. I'm happy to help. All right, and that now leads us to our Assistant Superintendent, Dolene Pitt.
I'm happy to be here. Another requirement of community councils is digital citizenship. A House bill was passed 213 requiring schools, community councils to have an active part in digital citizenship of our students. There's three basic parts to this, the requirement of the law. One is an administrative. The district needs to give a report to you annually about what we're doing at the district level. The school will give you a report specific to their school and what things that they're doing or what things they may need. And then I'll go into what the council responsibilities are. I want to give you an update on what the district is doing for our annual training for you. The first thing I want to let you know is we do provide resources for students. We do, most schools will have an assembly called Net Smarts from the state of Utah. It's approved by the state and they come out and do an assembly for the kids that are all about Net Smarts. It's very well done and the students like it. So that's how we manage educating students about digital citizenship. As a district, the questions that we need to answer are about security and what controls we have as a district. We use a web filter called iBoss, and it's through the state UEN, our provider. It filters, and the decisions of filtering are made by district administration. It logs all of the internet traffic throughout the entire district or anyone on our network. So at any time, our IT department can trace and follow where people have been on our network, as long as they're on our network. In our computers, if they're in our school, they can't get on the internet without going through our network. So that filter is always in place. The iBoss allows the district to distinguish filter settings by groups, so tighter for students, a little bit looser for staff, and then even a little bit more broad with administration. So it is filtered at different levels for different groups. If someone wants to know if a site's been open or blocked, they can call our IT department and ask if it's been blocked and for what reason. Our IT department can tell them that. Controls are limited to what the software can do. So sometimes kids or teachers will say, it's the filter causing me not to be able to do this, but usually it is a limitation of the software, and our IT department, again, can tell you whether that's the case or not. If a teacher or administrator or even students find a website or they're interested in a website that they want unblocked, for instance, when we put our first filter in years ago, we blocked YouTube for everyone. Well, teachers use that a lot for little snippets in their classroom and different things. So we can open that site for teachers and not kids. So we can do different things like that. The teacher can call and ask the IT to review that site and ask if we can get it open. And they can do that fairly rapidly. The other question that the state wants us to talk about, what if inappropriate information is accessed or website is accessed through our port? We do the best we can, but we can't. Sometimes things get through. And so or our kids are really, really smart. We can't figure it out. I mean, at least I can't as an adult, but those kids can do it, you know. It happens very rarely. Across our district, we feel pretty secure, but every once in a while you get a student who can figure out how to get to sites that are questionable or even really inappropriate. The teachers know that they just take that computer, they shut it down, remove the kid from there, get the administration involved, and then our IT department comes in, takes the computer and does a search on that computer, because remember, they can follow the history of anyone that's been on that computer. So, and the kids log into the computers individually, so we know the IT department can tell which student accessed which websites. So that's our portion of what we're responsible for. The schools, the principals will give you information about what devices are being used in their schools, what kind of supervision it is placed by the teachers in the classrooms, what the expectations are, and again, what is that school-specific protocol if inappropriate sites are being accessed. Or community councils purchase a lot of software and a lot of hardware for schools, which has been greatly appreciated and greatly used by our students. So it's important that our community councils understand what they're buying and what the purpose is and what it can be used for. And so our IT department is more than willing to come and talk to you about the advantages of one computer over another computer and what's cost effective with this computer. For instance, Chromebooks. It's very cost effective, but it does have limitations. But if those limitations are okay and your students, it was not going to hurt what they're going to be using that for. It's a great option, as opposed to if it's not going to meet what that teacher needs for those students, then we look at something a little more robust. So there's a lot of things that we can do. The community council's responsibility is to receive the reports from us and then discuss at one of your meetings the technology so that your whole community council understands what the filtering is, what the management systems are, what the supervision practices are, and are they appropriate for the school that you're in? Is what the district doing appropriate? If it's not, then give us some suggestions. Identify things that need to be different and give that to the principal, and they can share that with us so that as an IT department, we can review and make things better for kids. Our whole purpose, and I'm speaking for Jim, and I'm over the IT department, our whole purpose is service to teachers and students. We're a service group department, and we want to provide the best service. So if there's something that isn't working, we want to know. It's to educate students on digital citizenship, what's right and what's not right, and how that can be strengthened. If there's things we can do at the school and district level, then you have a voice in that and telling us what it is we need to do. And then a parent and guardian education component for you're responsible to get that information out to your parents. I gave you a handout called Citizenship in the Digital Age. It's a nice little handout that kind of compares what we did growing up and what kids do now. And so I thought that was very interesting and something that you might be interested in looking at. And the last thing is Superintendent talked a little bit, or said I would talk about a Parents with Partners night that we're having October 16th. And it's about how electronics are changing the human brain. They have a professor that will be coming out, her name's Christy Kane, and talking to parents about digital citizenship and what screen time does to kids and to all of us and what we can do to improve that. Some of the statistics that she quoted I thought were 1 in 4 teens spends more time socializing online than in person. 44 of the teen girls that are on social media are twice as likely to share sexual-based photos than boys. Electronics increase the neurotransmitter dopamine and increase the fundamental brain neurotransmitter oxytocin, which makes electronics addictive. And I think we all have seen kids that can't get off those electronics. We have adults that can't get off the electronics. Electronics are creating the most social, antisocial generation of all time. Think about that. They're social. They're on there talking all the time, but face-to-face, they're not. And what are they saying? We have, a lot of issues with cyberbullying and text messaging, cyberbullying, different things like that. And this workshop is presented evidence-based research and information about how all that screen time does affect us, and how parents what tools parents can use to limit that or to at least regulate what kids are doing. It looks like a fantastic opportunity for parents, and it looks very interesting to me. As a grandma, I think that's great, because I have grandchildren that will just sit and watch YouTube as long as you would let them, 24 hours. If you didn't take it away, they don't go to bed. So it's like it is very addictive. So something for you to talk about. Joanne, do you want to lead questions?
So the toughest thing for us to filter, obviously we don't filter, is this, right? 4G. We need parents' help with that now, and we're not trying to do an overreach, because the most difficult thing we have is, when kids, some of the times when they submit these Safe UT apps, or when the cyberbullying is happening, it's not at school. And there's several different opinions about how far the school district needs to reach with respect to parent rights and then their family and the limits that they set. We're not trying to usurp that. But we also have situations where we get a Safe UT tip, and we're going to act on that about cyberbullying. that didn't happen on school campus. But there's a limit to our jurisdiction or our authority. These are not things that just we struggle with, but law enforcement. I mean, all of our law enforcement agencies have now a digital division, a crime division, looking at digital, whatever electronic crimes. And so we're trying to figure that out, but we don't have all that knowledge. That's where we need parents to get involved, let us know what's happening, but also we can't do it alone without, the support of parents helping to monitor what's happening. That's why we think these Parents and Partners programs are so good. We want parents to attend. We're averaging about 60 to 80. We had 120 at the Fight the New Drug, which was a pornography Parents as Partners series last year. But that's about, and we're doing them in auditoriums so we can take a lot more, and I know people are busy. But the last thing I wanted to do was shout out to Angie. Where's Angie at? You'll hear more about, we kind of stole this from Willow, but they do a White Ribbon Week. And, Red Ribbon Week, right? And I guess there's all kinds of, cancer's purple, and anyway, White Ribbon is about digital citizenship. So some of our schools are going to adopt that and do some of the activities that they've done at the school level around. And so it's February is the month, or is it a week? Okay, so it's White Ribbon Month, digital citizenship, so maybe you can, consider that when you're talking about this, sponsoring some of those activities that are going on at different schools around White Ribbon Month. So, thank you.
Okay, we have some time for questions if you have any. Oh, that means we've done a good job. For the state trainings? Oh.
That's a great question. We post them on our website, and we do them on social media. So follow us, because our communications department posts those kind of activities on. So if you want to follow us on Twitter or Facebook, you'll get it there. We also have an Instagram account. But when you go to the district website, www.tooeleschools.org, there is an events kind of a calendar as well as a social media kind of a page, and that's where we usually post those kind of events. You're welcome.
Are those workshops posted? Like, are they recorded and then posted?
Have we recorded those?
Well, it depends on who we invite. There are some that specifically prohibit any taping. We did tape J-Mac. Who's that? Yeah, we did tape that. We've taped ones when we can. But I don't know where they're at on the website. That's a great question for us to follow up on. So, our intent is when we do trainings and we do things like that to have it there in case you couldn't come. Like, for example, we tape board meetings now, and you can see those if you're out of the area, or if it's after the board meeting, you can go back and view that. So if you don't have anything better to do on an evening, you want to watch 3 hours of a board meeting.
You can come in live.
But that's a good idea. I'll follow up with the communications department on whether we can post those training videos so parents can see. Some of them are like the screening on angst. We pay for that screening, and we don't actually own that, and so we pay for it, and we're not allowed to copy it.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. We always aim to leave before we tell you, so if you have no questions, thank you very much for coming. And make sure that you work with your principals. They can ask and answer lots of questions.